Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Linda Kobashi-Gawa, and thank you so much for joining me today for my presentation. It starts with access using library resources for equitable access to course materials. Again, my name is Linda Kobashi-Gawa. I'm a librarian. My pronouns are she, her. In addition to, or I guess as part of being a librarian at Fresno City, more recently, I've also been working on the current Title V grant, Redefining Student Ready, where we're working on things like a first year experience program, professional development center, a student center, and a mobile app. My apologies before I forget, we do have interpreters that are pinned, and that's Stephen and Shannon. Thank you so much for helping us today. So if you need an interpreter, look for them. I'm also joined today by Sally Potter and Sam Mamrosh, who I'll introduce a little bit later in further detail, and they're going to be doing some demos of Sally's linguistics course and BibliU in a few minutes. So I've been working with the Title V grant for about the last year. And as part of that, in addition to the things that I mentioned, I've also been working on open educational resources. That's really where my work started with that. And it was doing that kind of work that I started to think more about what is the role of library resources on campus. And so traditionally, I feel like there's been this sort of line drawn between course materials and library resources. As a librarian, I'm pretty familiar with faculty using library resources as supplemental materials, often requiring students to use library resources in their assignments. And that's pretty standard across the board. And beyond the textbook reserve collection, however, the library has not been so involved in what is actually being used to teach students in the classroom. And that actually seems to be changing, especially with what seems like an explosion of OER, greater awareness around textbook affordability, the inflating costs of textbooks, and of course, the hardships that so many of our students have faced during the pandemic. So all of those things, I think, layered on top of each other have really sort of blurred this line. And I'm to be completely honest, I'm not really sure what the future looks like when it comes to a lot of these solutions and how they're going to interconnect between, OER, the college bookstore models, and library resource acquisition. But I do think now is a prime time to explore how library resources are being used, and also how might the campus library reshape its models or policies to support textbook affordability beyond and in addition to a traditional textbook reserve collection. That's sort of how I want to frame this session. What we're going to do during the next 70 minutes is I have a couple of polls first, because I always want to know what faculty, what instructors are doing in their courses. I'm always interested to know what resources faculty are using. So I do have a couple of polls. And then I will show you how I started incorporating library resources into my Library Technology 57 class, and talk a little bit about librarian liaisons, because this is I think for me personally a little new, and Sally was actually the one who sort of brought this idea to us when we were working with the OER award program. So I'll talk a little bit about that and some support, and then you'll get a break from me and you'll hear from Sally Potter about how she incorporates library resources and OER into her linguistics course. Then Sam Mamrosh will present about BibliU for digital textbooks. Then I'll go over some additional resources that the library has recently subscribed to, and time permitting, I want to go over how to embed and link to resources in Canvas, because that's a question that I get regularly every semester. So I just want to cover that. If we don't have time, I can show that in Sally's session later on, how to OER at 1 p.m. And then at the end, I do want to try and save about 10 minutes to spare for Q&A. But of course, if you have any questions, Beth Ann is going to be monitoring the chat, so you can drop those in there, and she will stop us and if there are any questions in there that we can answer as we go through. Okay, so my first question for the group is, do you currently use library resources in your class? So I'm hoping this poll works. So what you're going to do is you can open up another web page and go to pollev.com/LK, those are my initials, 173, and then just put in your response, or you can just text LK173 to this number 37607, and then send in your answer once you've joined. So, oh, it is working. Somebody answered. Okay, no. Yes, that's primary text materials. Yes, that's supplemental materials. Okay. I'll give it like, hold on, I see. Okay, still see responses coming in, but it looks like, okay, a lot of supplemental usage. No is also one, none at all. Okay. I'll give like 20 more seconds if you're still trying to get in and respond. Oh yes, thank you for dropping that in the chat. Okay, so it looks like a lot of people do, and quite a few don't either. So that's really good to know. I'm always interested to know, you know, who's using library resources, how you're using it, and then what resources you're using. So my next question, and if you stay on the screen for this question, it should update to this next poll. And this is going to be like a word cloud sort of thing. So what resources, if you do, what do you use? And examples can be, you know, I use videos from Films on Demand. I use Swank. I use EBSCO articles or ebooks. You can type in a full sentence or just the name of the resource.
Okay.
Yeah, also on our website, we have.
Linda, someone said in the chat that the text thing wanted your keyword.
Oh, I don't know what that is.
So right now,
I'm sorry. I don't know. You can put it in the chat too. Okay, Films on Demand. Oh, recommended assignment. Okay, EBSCO. Catalog. Ebooks. Okay. Oh, opposing viewpoints. I see. Films on Demand. Videos. Okay, O'Reilly for higher education. I see. Films on Demand. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so there's a lot of different types of resources that people are using. So that's really good to know. I do see some OER in there, so that's also really good. And we do have access to OER resources through here. And so this is always good to know. And for those of you who don't use library resources, I wish I had created a poll to ask why, whether it's like, you know, there's too many, or you haven't been able to find something that you're looking for, but that's also good, good feedback for us to know as well. So thank you all for doing that poll. This was really helpful actually for me. And, you know, understanding what's useful, what's not, what can be used as primary resources for to teach your courses, and also supplemental. I do see some library services in there too, like RAPS. I don't see any LibGuides, but I do know that we have quite a few faculty who use those as well. So that's also awesome. And I'll show a LibGuide in just a few minutes. So what I want to go into now is how I sort of moved my Library Technology 57 course and how I incorporated library resources into that course. So what's really funny is I was actually thinking about this for, you know, during the past semester, and even though a large part of my job is teaching people how to use library resources, I didn't actually use library resources to teach my course until actually the second time that I taught it. I only used the textbook the first time I taught this course. Of course, if it is a library technology course, so if an assignment or activity required the use of a library resource, I would give instruction on that. But I didn't actually use any of the content that I found in the library, which I know sounds kind of silly, but I relied on the textbook because that's what was in the course outline of record, and that's what had been used for a while. And then after the first semester, I decided I wasn't going to use that book for a few reasons. So one was because it cost $88, which I felt like was expensive, especially because I found that some of the material was a little out of date. So about half of the book, I found half of the book really useful. It was foundational and introductory, but the other half had things that I didn't really want to use so much of. Some of the resources, they didn't exist anymore. They were, you know, websites and things that had just gone defunct. So, and another reason was that many of our students work in K-12 schools. The book was focused more on academic public library work. So I wanted to look for things that would be more relevant to our students and the communities that they worked with. So I am going to switch over my screen and go to show you my LITEC 57 course. So I hope you all can see my Canvas course now. Okay, see thumbs up. Thanks, Sally. And so what I did is I basically looked through the library catalog. There are a lot of organizations and things that have materials and guidelines and rules and things like that that are freely available that I use quite a bit of. A lot of these like foundational guides and things like that from the American Library Association and things like that. But I also went through our library catalog, through some of our ebooks, and I was able to find about 4 books that covered the content of most of the units in the course. So I'm going to go to the course modules. So during our first week, we don't really do any reading. It's just introduction to the course, the policies, expectations, things like that. So that's what the first week is dedicated to. And then I have a page that says these are your course readings and materials for the semester, with a note that says most of your readings will come from these texts, not all of them, but they are made available for the units. And they're made available from the Fresno City College Library or online. And then I list out the books that I'm using with the links to them in the library databases. Hold on just a second. So, oops, I'm sorry. Did that switch back? Okay. So the reason I have 4 books is because I only use certain chapters or sections from each of them. So I did have to do some curating, but here I provide the link to the entire book so they could just access the full book if they want to look at it beforehand. When I assign readings to each unit, I'll only include the chapter and link to the chapter and the link to whatever they need to read for that unit. So as an example, this is sort of a busy unit I'm working on being too text heavy. But this is a unit on which we look at readers advisory and reference for children and teens. And this is actually a really fun week because they get to do a book talk and they record it and they talk about a book and try to sell it to, you know, a certain audience. So it's a fun week. It's they have a lot of fun with it. So I list out our required readings here, and it does look like there's a lot of links. And I do provide 2 ways to access all of the materials that we find. So one way is just generally I downloaded the chapter and they read the PDF here. So you can see here's the whole chapter. Hold on, I need to move my little text box to close this. I also provide the link to the chapter in the library database, and this could just be, you know, me being paranoid about technology or distrustful of it, but I do feel like having multiple ways to access the resource is helpful. If for any reason one of these doesn't work, the other, they also have the option to read the other one. The reason why I also link to the material in the database as well is sometimes it's safer for copyright issues. It's always safer to link than to upload. But EBSCO and a lot of these databases do give you page limits of what you can download and what you can save. And that's usually what I use as a guide on how much of the book I can actually download and provide to students inside my course. The other reason is because if the chapter references like an appendix or a glossary or something that's available like at the end of the book, then they can access that instead of just having the PDF of that chapter. They have access to the entire book here, and they can go down to the appendix or the subject index or something if they want to check that information as well. Okay, do we have any questions so far? I don't see anything.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
When one links to the library through whatever search,
Mhm.
wouldn't there have to be some sort of login process, or how do you avoid that? Because I know that anytime I go to the library, I always have to log in. So that might be just something different, but maybe you can address that.
No, that's right. So when you're off campus, the way it's supposed to work is when you're on campus using on the campus network, there shouldn't be any need to authenticate because we're assuming you are a student, an instructor, a staff member who's affiliated with the college. Off campus, we do require logins whenever you access library materials. It's part of our agreements with the vendors that we only provide access to FCC affiliated people. So you do have to sign in with your MyPortal login. I did not have to sign in at this moment because I'm already logged in. So you didn't see me log in through a separate login because it should authenticate you when you have signed in through single sign-on.
What about students?
Same thing.
So when they're accessing it off campus, they will have to, anytime they click on a database library link, they will have to log in?
Yes, they
Okay.
should only have to do it once and during a session,
Gotcha.
and then it should automatically authenticate them for the rest of that session. If they close out for any reason, then they'll probably have to sign in again.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, great question. And actually on that note, this is one of the things I wanted
Linda,
to say.
can you zoom in a little bit and make your a little bit
Oh,
bigger?
I'm sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Yeah, and you can see here, well, you might not actually be able to see it, but these links are the permalink. So this is actually something I was going to show at the end, but this is something that I think is important. So I know it's like natural to try and grab this link up here in your web browser, and that link does not work. It will break. So the best way to get a link directly to a resource is to find the permalink or the link to the page inside the database. So this is an EBSCO, so this would be the permalink to that. And you'll know it's the permalink because it actually starts with this fresno.idm.oclc.org/login. So just so you all know, but again, if you have any issues linking to anything, just send me the link and let me know. A screenshot would also be helpful. That kind of helps authenticate it. Sometimes it's an issue on our end where I didn't format the links correctly for the proxy. Sometimes it's an issue on the vendor's end. So it helps if you let us know if a student tells you that they can't get access into something, or if you're having trouble getting access to something, just let me know and I can try and work on that. Okay. Any other questions before I move on? So so that's basically, I mean, how I link to my course. It did take curating. I did have to, I think I spent an entire summer just going through and replacing pieces of the textbook that I was using. So it was effort, and it did take a little while, especially because I had to use 4 different books, and even those didn't cover every single unit. I did still use on free resources from online, resources from library organizations, and things like that. So it was a laborious process, but I enjoyed that process. I think that's partly why I enjoy being a librarian so much. I think it's fun searching and accessing and figuring out, the best strategy to discover the right information. But I fully understand that not everyone enjoys that process or has the time to do that process. And, I think I have the privilege of being able to do that as part of my job. But it's not just me who gets to do that. It's all of the librarians. So this is all of our librarians, full-time and part-time. And I think actually Laurel Dowd is coming back as an adjunct. So I need to add her into this slide. But I also want to show you some support that we might. Oh, I see someone has a hand raised.
Oh yeah, I had a quick question. So I'm from a discipline where there's not a lot of material available that's open resource.
Okay.
I'm wondering, is it possible to make requests from the library to be able to see if they could, I don't know, maybe get a book and open it up? I didn't even know if that's possible, but yeah, is that a possibility?
Yeah, it is. So, and I think now too is a really good time because of all the HERF money that's coming around. So if you have a suggestion for a title that you would like to have in the library, and if we can get it as an ebook with, perpetual access and like unlimited users, then we can do a one-time purchase for that. And then that'll be, yeah, we could do that. So
Awesome.
yeah, let me know. I'm not sure what.
What's your discipline?
Yeah.
Roberto?
Chicano Latino Studies.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you know that, and that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, let me know. We're not successful all of the time because we do have to work with publishers and all of that with licensing and things like that and our vendors. But if you have a title, if you want us to trial a database, we've been trialing a lot during the past 2 years because of the pandemic and everyone having to move their courses online. So just let us know and we can always set that up. Yeah, and actually going off of that, so what I do want to show everyone is that the librarians we all have specific subject areas that we collect for. And so one of the things that we've actually been experimenting with, and this actually started with the OER award program, so it's very new, but we've been expanding on our subject area selection responsibilities and sort of becoming subject liaisons. And this again started with librarians volunteering to help those faculty who are participating in the award program. And so what the liaisons have been doing is basically helping those faculty search for OER and also zero cost materials for their courses. You know, we've been hearing really positive feedback from both the award program faculty and the librarians. And like when I spoke earlier about how the library might reshape its models, this was one of the things I was thinking about, that we collect in these subject areas, but we can also provide research assistance to faculty who teach in these subject areas and who might want to incorporate more library resources as well as open access and OER into their courses. So I'm going to try and switch over real quickly and go to a guide for faculty that I want to show you all. So it's on the library page. And I will drop the link in the chat, but if you scroll down to the section that says research help, there is a link that says for faculty, and this is our faculty LibGuide that I created. And if you go to library contact, there's a few different links in here for, you know, course reserves information, library instruction, and research assistance. These are, again, our headshots, and the full-time librarians all have subject areas that we collect for. For the physical print collection that circulates, that's mainly what we collect for. But again, I feel like we can expand this role into helping with research and other resources for your course. So the full-time librarians, again, we have additional subject areas that we collect for. You see Donna, Siobhan, myself, Shannon, and Mai, and we have our specific subject areas. So if you do have a question, I would encourage you to reach out to the librarian who collects for your specific subject area. If you don't see your subject area listed on here, just email to me. We do all collect for these specific areas. So we all collect biographies, we all select fiction, graphic novels. For the social sciences, that's a huge, we might need to actually break that up, but that's a huge area that we all collect for, and poetry and the reference collections. So reach out to the librarian in that subject area. But again, if you don't see it there, you can just contact me directly. Just send me an email. Okay, any other questions? I see there's a couple things in the chat, but I don't know what they say, unless they're older.
It's older.
Okay.
They're older. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I am going to switch it over to Sally Potter.
Okay, hi there. I'm going to start by giving you some background, and then I'll show you two different things from my Linguistics 10 course that I created using library materials. Okay, so I want to give you kind of the background about how I came to this place, because I think some of you might be sort of thinking about this, or kind of on your own journey, and kind of right there, and this might give you some insight or might help you along the way. So around 2016, I started getting interested in OER and ZTC, which stands for zero textbook cost. So they're almost the same thing, except OER is talking about the license, ZTC is talking about the cost. So ZTC is usually talking about these materials that we can get in the library that are copyrighted, but we can get them for free. So that's going to be, all of these wonderful journal articles, videos, on demand, ebooks that are copyrighted, but our students can access them for free because they're students of Fresno City College. And then anything we can also find on the web, websites. And those are free because when we go to access them, they have ads. They're posted on the web, so they have ads. And so those we can link to them and we can access them for free. Okay, so like I said, it was about 2016. I started getting into it, and I started to reach out to my department colleagues, and one of my wonderful friends and previous colleagues, Jean Carroll, decided to go on this journey with me. Now, she was very close to retirement, and if you knew Jean, she's a really cool lady, but sometimes she tends to be a little bit, I want to say on the, I don't know, I don't want to say the grumpy side, but I will say that she is not the type of person to do very much that's not, you know, in the contract. Okay, this type of thing. So I did talk to her so much and convince her that it was very important and to go along, and she finally agreed with me. Okay, so we looked at it, we started looking at OER, and just like Rigoberta said, for Chicano American Studies, there's no OER for introductory linguistics. It just does not exist. So we realized that in order to do this, we're going to have to build our courses from bits and pieces. There are two linguistics courses that we teach. One is Intro to Language, and the one is Intro to Language for educators. She usually did the Ling 10, and I usually did the Ling 11. So we kind of split up the work that way. So I was kind of ahead of her, and I was starting to look and kind of starting to incorporate more and more of these materials, looking at the library materials, looking at probably mostly websites, YouTube videos, TED Talks, that kind of thing, into my course. And I started to just kind of use more and more of those. We call them like, and a lot of you are probably using like the same things, kind of like using more and more of these supplemental materials. And it got to the point where I was using more and more of them, to where it was almost like so much of the supplemental stuff that it was like I was using more of the supplemental stuff than I was actually using of my textbook. And I started to notice that my students were responding really more positively to the materials and the assignments and the readings that I was creating than they were to the textbook. And I'm not saying that, you know, I'm some kind of like genius content creator or like instructional designer or anything like that. What I think it is that my students could tell that through, and let me just preface this by saying that most all, not 100%, but most all of these courses are online courses, so asynchronous online courses. But I think that students can tell that we were creating these assignments and this content specifically for them. It was coming from our voice, that we were the ones that were creating it for them. And they could appreciate that. And then also the topics that I was choosing were things that like I was specifically excited about, or I was approaching it in a way that I was specifically excited about. And so that is kind of contagious. And whether it's in, you know, a face-to-face classroom in front of students, or I'm, you know, approaching it in an asynchronous online class, students definitely can tell when it's a topic that I'm specifically excited about. They, you know, catch that, and they also get excited about it. Okay, so it was a shift, and it probably was a few semesters that I started to shift. And then, you know, I started to realize that, okay, I'm using more of this supplemental stuff than I actually was of the textbook. And when I finally cut the cord, it was an 8-week summer class. I wasn't 100% ready to go, didn't have 100% prepared when the class started. I knew it wouldn't be, you know, perfect. I knew it wouldn't be great. I knew it would be a sprint, but I just went for it. I just said, okay, I'm just going to build as I go. And I just went as fast as I could. And it was hard, you know, summer is never easy, but I just had the time and I just went for it. And then once I was done with that 8-week summer class, I sort of had the majority of the thing built. And then from there, I started to really kind of, you know, do the fine tuning of like the design and like the tweaking and like the making things pretty at that point. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so this is how we work together. Okay, so like I said, Jean is not the type of person to really do things that, you know, any like extra added work, but because I was so excited about it and I started getting into it and I was like, oh, look at this, then she started getting excited about it. And keep in mind, she's like 18, you know, 2-3 semesters away from retiring. And you know how people tend to get at that time. She did not get like that at all. She got so into this. She is a hell of a researcher. She was finding stuff that we had no idea about. You know, we were in graduate school a long time ago. We discovered things that we had no idea about. She would like run to my office, burst in, Sally, you will not believe what I found. You know, this podcast about code switching. I found this cool article. Did you know young women are like language innovators? I did this study on this, and look at this. I'm going to email you. Okay, so she put together. It's like a massive thing with like all these like really cool, relevant, brand new things that were just super cool. However, what she made for her class, she's not the greatest instructional designer. So her assignments that she would make on her pages were like massive walls of text, like all these like links out to everything. Like highlights, it's just like, you know, like ugly on your eyes. Like to me, it was like overwhelming. Sometimes she would like send me the link to her course or something, and I would just be like, oh, I can't even look at this right now. I don't like that. I like things that are, you know, like easy on the eye, and you know, I think that's very important. So what I did was, then I came in, and when I had the time, then I came in and I took her stuff and I used my skills of taking her content, massaging her language so that it's, you know, a little easier to understand, chunking things up, using the white space, pulling in openly sourced images, making things manageable. And then I have a very specific instructional design style, okay, that I'm going to show you. And it may be a little different than you're used to or that you've seen. And so some people like their modules to be very small chunks, where you have like a short page where the students read, and then they click next, and then they read a little bit, and then they click next, and then they get to an assignment. I don't like that. And that may work for some disciplines, but for us, and the way that we chose to go was, I like a module. These are 3-unit courses, and I like our modules to be very small. So maybe like 2, 3, 4 items or assessments in each module, and then everything in the module is an assessment. So the only pages that are typically in our modules is an intro page that explains what to do, and then a summary page that just tells students, okay, you make sure you've done everything. And then they might have a quiz, a discussion, and then maybe like a summary response, and that's it. And then for each assessment, the editable pane is relatively long. So everything that they need to succeed and to do well on that assessment is located within that editable pane there. So our students, instead of clicking through the module, they're not doing that as much, but they do have to scroll, and that's just my preferred style. It works well for our class because we don't have as much skill building where they have to like learn, although there is some, but they don't have to like learn this skill and build upon it and learn this next skill and then build upon it. There are more self-contained topics. So it kind of works a little bit better that way. But it, you know, that may or may not work for you. Okay, so my point in telling you all this is that, of course, you know, I encourage everybody to, you know, ditch your commercial textbook. And, you know, it's, you know, of course, that's best for, you know, all students and everything, but it's not necessarily going to be like an easy swap out for every single discipline. Building a course from scratch, of course, takes time. It's not always going to be possible to just do it in a semester or even a year. And if you can find a partner or two, that's better. Have fun with it. You know, this is your discipline that you love, that you've devoted your life to. You're the expert here, so use your strengths, use each other, and just kind of have fun. Okay, now for my hedges. Okay, so I'm going to show you some things that I made quite a while ago, and they may or may not be, you know, perfectly attributed, perfectly cited. You know. I do believe very strongly in accessibility. And so what I like to do is to create, I like to grab a copy text and create a Word document, run it through an accessibility checker just to make double sure that it's accessible for students, and then embed the Word documents into the Canvas page that way. And then that way students can grab those easily and take those. And then I try to cite it as best as I can. I know I'm probably missing some pieces there, but I took an accessibility training many years ago, and I was told that ADA law trumps copyright law. So that's my story. Okay, let's see if there's anything else I want to tell you before I show you. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, okay. I think I can share my screen here. Yes, I want to stop sharing. Here we go. Okay, so, oh, I don't see the little green thing. Are you looking at a picture of a little chimpanzee?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay, so this is from one of from a discussion, and I'll start with this one. Now, the reason it's looks like a Reedley College course is kind of a long story, but this is just the easiest place I found this. It's like a shared linguistics district shell, and that's why it's there. I'll give you the details later if you really want. It's on Canvas Commons though. Okay, so this is an example of a discussion, and I wanted to show you on this because it's a discussion and it doesn't have any students in it. So what I did here is just this part right here was just written by us. You know, this is just the part that we wrote right here. You know, this is just, I don't even know if this can be copyrighted. This is just facts right here. And then this actually links out to a website. And again, you know, this can't be copyrighted. It's just, you know, I mean, it's everywhere. It's just facts. I did embed a couple of just YouTube videos. They're everywhere. And you can just, you know, watch these. This is just like to get students kind of like, you know, into the, you know, kind of warmed up and into the idea. And then this is an article from the New York Times. And yes, we do have a subscription to the New York Times. So any New York Times article we can use in our course. And again, I just have pulled it, and I have it here. And then one thing that I do like to do in my courses and for all of my assignments is I like to highlight what they're supposed to do. Because for me, as a lazy person, what I like to do is I want to know, yeah, okay, that's fine, lady. Yeah, you're giving me all this mumbo jumbo, but I want to know what I have to do. So if I was a student, I would be like, okay, overview. Yeah, that's fine. But I'm reading this part first, and then I'm gonna go back up to the top. And then I'm gonna read the overview and all that stuff. So I have that in my mind. So that is the way that my mind works. And so I want to give students that option. So that's why I use the highlighting part. Now, they may or may not do it that way. You know, I'm not sure, but that's how I think of it. So that's how I have this set up. And I just have the article here. They can minimize it if they really want to, you know, get rid of it. But I like to keep it open because otherwise I feel like they're gonna miss it if I don't keep it open. And that is the main reading. Now I do have this full Project NIM. It's a full documentary and it's linked out. It's on BBC Films website. And this, I just checked, I'm not gonna click it, but it is a live link here and it's just optional, you know, it's a movie. I mean, it's not really that much learning in there. If you've ever seen it, it's kind of a crazy movie. But you know, it's really interesting and they might want to watch it if they want it. And then here's what they're supposed to be doing right here. I got my tutorials in there and then here's how I would incorporate that. Okay, so that's one example of that. Okay, and then I see something popped up in the chat, but I'll check that in just a second. Or actually, and Kenny, I see your question. Let me look at the chat here. Did you not embed the BBC film? Yeah. So if the video was something that I really wanted them to watch, then I would have embedded it like I did those 2 warm-up videos. But I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, it's a 3-unit class and this is like 1 assignment out of like 3 or 4 for the week. I'm not gonna, you know, require them to watch a 2-hour movie for the, and if you've seen that movie, it's like, it's not really about Nim Chimpsky's language learning because spoiler alert, chimpanzees do not learn language. So that's the answer to that question. But yeah, so yeah, that's the answer, I think. And then Kenny, was that the or did you have a question, Ken?
Yeah, I did. And, you know, I think part of it is just because I'm after 2 years, I'm kind of just getting comfortable with online education. And so part of my question is just like how you do things to kind of like steal from you or, you know, but we talked about ADA compliance. And one of the things I notice is that like when I highlight things, because that's always been a practice of mine, it'll come up a flag and it'll say highlighted things are not, you know, basically like I'm doing something wrong. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but that feature with the little person on, and I'm just kind of wondering, like, you know, about that. And then
so it tells you that you, so it tells you that you can't highlight things.
It doesn't say I can't, but it's like, you know,
yeah.
it's kind of like a demerit, or that's what it
Yeah.
feels like. You know what I
So-
mean? So I try to go through each, you
Yeah,
know.
so I mean, I'm by no means an expert, but like the rule is like you can't use highlighting to indicate meaning. Okay, so if like I'm highlighting something and only the students that can see the highlight are going to get some special meaning out of it, and so students that cannot see the highlighting are going to miss out on the meaning, then that's a no. That's what you want to avoid. And then the other big problem is, and this is something that, you know, I may or may not be violating, but and I've seen some really bad examples of this, is where people get kind of like, oh, like highlight crazy, or like color crazy, where they're just you know, you have your syllabus or you have your welcome letter, your guidelines or whatever, and you will say, oh, this is important, highlight, this is important. And before you know it, it's like you've got green, yellow, pink, you know, like red, and it's just like, it's like everything is just like overwhelming to where it's just like, you know, too much, and then it doesn't mean anything anymore, if that makes sense. So you have to be a little careful about that kind of stuff, I think. But if you're just highlighting something just to make it like sort of for decoration, so I'm kind of towing the line there, I think, with my little shortcut. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I probably have like a million other questions, but they're probably not pertinent to what we're doing.
Yeah, probably not.
It's just looking at
Sophisticated.
how you do things is really interesting, because of course I'm comparing it to, you know, how I do
Yeah.
things. But thank you.
Okay. Lisa?
Hello, I just found a little bit pertinent to mention that for students or people that they have they have a disability about with reading, highlighting is not helping them actually to go through the material. So what I learned before is that it's better to bold or make other type of emphasis when we
Right.
try
So
to highlight something and no highlight.
Yeah. A screen reader is not gonna pick that up at all. Whereas a screen reader will recognize bold and italics. Yeah, it will. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so here is, and now this time I'm going to show you just like the whole module. Although the last one is a discussion, but I'll promise not to. I'll be very careful not to scroll down too far. Okay, so we start off with the intro page, and it has what they're supposed to do, and then the first one is a quiz, and oh, I'm not going to switch over to student view. You guys know what it looks like. But again, I have a short little video for them to start off with, and then I tell them what to do, and I like to give them, some context. Okay, like this, what you're going to encounter next. This is a whole chapter of a book, okay? Because sometimes I give them just like a couple pages or something that's kind of like light reading, but no, right now you're gonna get something that is hard to read, and so be ready for it, take notes. In fact, when you're taking this quiz, and they get 3 chances to take the quiz, this is a learning quiz. I don't expect them to memorize it or anything like that, but as you're taking the quiz, have it in front of you, and you're going to be searching for the answers to the quiz in the reading. Okay, so I want them to end up after 3 chances. I want them to end up with 100% on this quiz. Okay, and so what I ended up finding here is a chapter in an ebook that we have at our library, and you can see the attribution here. And so this was pulled as a, I guess I pulled this as a PDF. I think the date on here is 2018. So that was a bazillion years ago. Have no memory of doing this whatsoever. But I guess it was a PDF that I pulled it, and then I just embedded it in here. And it is quite long, 40 pages long. But it's, you can see it's a textbook. I mean, this is a textbook. And it's black and white. It does have pictures, but they're all black and white. And, this is exactly what I'm looking for for my course. I mentioned that there are no introductory OER textbooks for linguistics. However, there are graduate level, a couple graduate level linguistics textbooks on OER. There are anthropology textbooks on OER. There are psychology textbooks on OER. So it's possible to piece together books from different places, but there's nothing, the work has to be done. And so thinking of those disciplines where the work hasn't been already done, it just could take some time to do that. And I'm thinking of the Chicano Studies one right now, because I feel like that could be very similar journey. It's not going to be easy, but it could be similar. Okay, and then
Sally I'm so sorry, but
yeah.
we're running.
Okay,
We're running.
I'm so
I want
sorry.
to give Sam enough time to
Yeah.
show.
Okay,
Bibliu.
yeah, and then this one is just very similar thing right there. Okay, and I am done.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to, I think Sam is going to share her screen, but I'm going to introduce Sam Mamrosh, who is our account project manager at Bibliu. And if you were at Convocation yesterday, you may have heard my really quick presentation about it, but Sam will also do a quick presentation and a little demo of it.
Yes, hi everyone. I hope that everybody's having a good day. Hold on one second. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen quickly. Can everyone see my screen here?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Sam Mamrosh. I am an account project manager here at Bibliu. So just a quick review of our team. This is some of our team, and like I said, I'm your account project manager. We have our sales rep here also. So we have a big team behind us. So Bibliu is an e-textbook platform, and we give your students access through Canvas. So we have an LTI integration where the students can click directly onto the Bibliu link from Canvas, and it will bring them directly to their library, and it will create an account for them as well. So here I've included some instructions for you to add the Bibliu link to your Canvas courses. So you'll see here, you'll just go to the navigation tab here. Bibliu will appear down here, and you'll just drag it up to the top here so that you can see that there. And then just remember to click save at the bottom here. And then from there, the student link will appear over here. So they'll be able to click on that, and it will bring them directly, like I said, to their library. So this is the student view of Bibliu, and I'm just going to go actually to our platform. So hold on one sec. So like I said, directly from Canvas, the students are able to access the library. When they pull it up, it'll look like this for them. So they'll see all of the titles that are available to the Fresno campus. And then they'll be able to favorite certain titles if they wanted to. They can also search through titles. So if they wanted to search for a specific term, they can search for things like infant. I have a baby, so infant is on my mind. They can also, if they find specific titles that they want to favorite, as you can see, I've favorited a few here. So they can also search directly for that word within their favorites as well. So from the library here, let's click into a text. When they click into a text, they'll be brought directly back to the page where they last left off. So you can see that they'll see the text here, down here. You can see that they have the page number, and this does correspond with the print copy of the page number, and it's also over here. They also have the table of contents here up on the left-hand side. So you can see all of the different chapters here. And they can jump to a specific chapter if they needed to. Over here, they also have the search feature similar to the library. If they search for a specific term in the text, it will bring up all of the different pages that that term appears in the text. And then as well as all of the different images. So unfortunately, that was a bad one, but all of the different images that would come up relating to that word as well. Within these texts, we also have some really cool features. So you can highlight, the student can highlight directly on the text. So if they highlight the text, you'll see that they can highlight by different colors so they can organize really well. So if they highlight the text, it'll come up in the color that they select. They can also annotate. So if they right click and they can add a comment if they wanted to. So if something was going to be on the test, they can write test and they can save it. And you can see here, a little dot comes up and it will show, if you click on that, it'll show the comment that you had. You can
I'm
also,
sorry to interrupt. I see Susan, you have a question or you have your hand raised.
oh, sure.
Just a quick question. I understand that occasionally, or for some of the Biblio textbook, there is a notification or a click that says subscription. Does that mean something specific? Does that mean there has to be some sort of special sign up, or should we just ignore that? It came up yesterday in our department meeting. And so I figured I'll ask about that.
Yeah. So can you, well, maybe it would be better if we connected just in the interest of time off of this meeting. I haven't seen that before, so it might be something that is that needs to be like that we can troubleshoot.
Was
No
that
problem.
was that in the spreadsheet, Susan?
No,
Or did you go directly into Biblio and it said that?
Directly into Biblio. But we can do this
Okay.
outside, no problem.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I definitely would like to follow up on that. So going from there, you can search through your annotations. So if you click the little pencil icon, it will bring up all of the different places that have been highlighted. And you can see that if they're highlighted in different colors, that will show here. You can also filter by your specific highlighted colors. And you can filter oldest to newest. And then you can also, like I said, search through the specific terms as well. Over here, you can change the viewer settings. So you can make the text as big or as small as you'd like. And you can change the margins and some of the modes as well to be more accessible for students, any students with disabilities. And then you can go ahead and reset it to default. One of my other favorite features that we have is if you, we have text to speech. So you can highlight specific text and then click on this little read aloud feature here. And if you click on that, you'll see this bar comes up at the bottom. And if you click play, if you have something highlighted, it will read the specific highlighted portion. But if you don't have anything highlighted, it will just start reading from the beginning of the page. You can also change the accents and you can change the speed as well. So then just over here, you can also, the students can also save to PDF, which allows them to print. Different publishers have different amounts that they allow the students to print, so that it will depend on the book that they're trying to print of how much they're able to print. And then we also have a read offline option. So if the students download the app, they can download the text to their app and then they'll be able to read them if they're not able to access the internet.
Sam, one question, so a few questions in the chat, but I think I answered most of them. So we can link directly to a textbook in Biblio, correct? Or in Canvas, I'm sorry.
You can link directly to the library.
Okay.
So not directly to a book, but definitely directly to the library, and you can tell the students which text to access.
Okay. So then another question was, can we link to a specific chapter? And so that would, I'm assuming no.
No. Oops.
So I'm trying to think through of how it would work, but I do know you are able to, so if you highlight the text, you can actually, the students are able to copy it. So that's one feature that I did want to note, but also you can share the page. So as long as, and Linda, that might be something that we need to talk about further as far as single sign-on, but as long as this, you can share, as long as the student has an account, they're able to, when they click on the share link here, they're able to log on and see where you've noted in the text. Does that make sense?
Okay. Cynthia.
Yeah, do we have step-by-step instructions on just how to add this to the course? Because my book is there. I didn't hear about this until yesterday. I would like to have this set up by next week, and we could easily drive y'all nuts if we're all calling asking for. So is something written? I mean,
Yeah, well, I can send out these slides as well. I don't know that there's anything written specifically currently, but I can definitely write something up. But the slides do have the instructions on how to
okay.
enter your Canvas.
And actually, Sam, I don't want to interrupt you, but I can just show you really quickly now in my Canvas.
Can I just point out one more thing before I stop sharing my screen?
Yes.
One other thing that I did mean to point out is this help icon down here. So if you click on the help icon, or if the students click on the help icon, they can search through all of our frequently asked questions. Our top suggestions will come up, but they can also click on, if they can't find an answer, if they click on the contact us button, they can ask questions directly to our support team, and we generally respond within the hour. Okay, I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Okay, let me go into here. Okay, so as an example, this is my, well, let me go into my my library skills course that I haven't published yet. So you can see I've already enabled Bibliu, but if I wanted to, sorry, did someone say something? Okay, so what you would do is just off of your homepage, go down to settings. You all can see my screen, right? Yeah, okay. Go to navigation, and then it's where you would pull it up. So it might, so I've heard from somebody, it's way down at the bottom of this list. So go, you'll have to go look for it, drag it up.
It is way down in the bottom. Yeah.
Okay, so so you gotta go all the way down to the bottom, drag it up, and then make sure you save. And it will be in your list. And then when you go, I'll show you the student view, but it'll be there where you put it. And then when you click on it directly to the oh, you know what the issue is? Sorry, we should not, yeah. It doesn't recognize me as a student. So Bibliu, it'll open directly to our catalog. And then and then I actually forgot to share this with Sam so she could put this on her slides too, but we do have a step-by-step instructions for how students can download the app and create their account as well. So I actually find that the app is in the long run easier to use. I don't know what you've heard, Sam, on your end, but I downloaded it and use it, and I've asked some students about it, and they think the app is really useful because they can read their books on their phones and access it directly. And so there are some instructions that you can use on our LibGuides. So let me go back to our library homepage. And if you go down to find and access, there's a button that says Bibliu and textbooks on reserve. And we have a guide for Bibliu. You can look at the titles if you're not in Canvas. And then we also link to a lot of the resources that Sam shared directly from Bibliu, which I'll also put those in the chat as well. But I'll add this to this link to the slides so that you get everything together. Okay, I see a couple questions, a few hands raised. Cynthia, did that help?
I got that far just quickly on Canvas, and I found the book, but I couldn't figure out how to put the book onto the Canvas. There was no,
I don't think you can. I think they, from what I understand, is they will always have to go through Biblio,
Yes.
Bibliu, and then you should probably tell them to favorite it so that it is available. So Bibliu is like a library,
Correct.
and you're going in to pick out your book rather than a direct linked to the book itself. They would always have to go. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, it didn't sound, that's different from what I understood yesterday. So, okay, I'm glad I understand that now.
I'm not sure if Sally or Susan raised their
Yes.
hand first.
Sally, I had a couple questions. If I assign a book out of the library, out of the Bibliu library, can multiple students access it at the same time? Or is it like checking it out and then only, like you have it for a certain amount of time and then it goes on to the next person?
The students can access it at the same time.
Okay, great. And then the textbooks that the library normally reserves that we order for our classrooms, for our classes, are those all available in Bibliu, or is that the same way as it normally was in the past?
We still have the print textbooks on reserve in the library. Not all of those books will be in Bibliu. We have about 320 titles in Bibliu right now. If a book that you are using is not currently in Bibliu, send me the title and the ISBN, and I am compiling a list to send to Sam and their team to do a run through. We have done a run through of all the spring titles that we have right now, and so the catalog is updated with those. So, but I think, Sam, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We can try again, right, to see, because sometimes the licenses take some time.
Yeah, definitely. So if you have a text that we've marked as unavailable, we can continue to try to get those texts for you. Or if there's anything going forward, or if there's any additions, please let us know and we can try to get those for you.
Okay, so I could probably CC, would you mind putting your email in the chat, Sam? And then on those textbooks, the ones that are on reserve, can multiple students access them at the same time?
The print ones, no, one student can check one out at one time.
Okay, because
yeah.
they're print, they're hard
Yeah,
copy.
Correct, yeah.
And then would you be copying off pages for students as you did in the past?
Yes. So actually on that Bibliu page, am I still sharing it?
Yes.
Okay. So it's if reset my password. Okay, if your textbook is not available in Bibliu, we have a link to request scans. So we are still doing that. Yeah.
Okay.
So
all right.
the link, and the links down here on this page too.
So as long as it's not in Bibliu, then of course they can't all get the book at the same time, because they can't. There's only one copy. But if it is in Bibliu, then multiple students can access it, right?
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't work exactly like the library works, where we have caps on how many students at a time can access a title. Bibliu, any student who wants to access any book can at any time, basically.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And Sally, it's just so I think it's easier, it's a little more streamlined. If you can send me the titles of the book, and I'm just going to send a list that I'm compiling to Sam. I think that'll be the easiest, because I do have other titles from instructors since I made the announcement yesterday. So I want to send those all at the same time.
Thank you. I'll do that.
Was Susan next?
Yeah, just real quick. Do students have to subscribe even if they access it through their Canvas course, or is that when they create the app or outside of Canvas?
Do you
understand the subscription part?
There's no subscription. So Bibliu is just it's a platform that they'll click on. through.
Yeah, but
Canvas.
you refer to, they have to create an account.
So it when they click on the Canvas link, it automatically creates an account for them. So it
Gotcha.
saves their favorites. That's
Gotcha,
what
gotcha.
I apologize for that.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Diana?
I have a question about just the regular research databases. If a student accesses a book through there, is there a limited amount of people that can view it at one time, or is it unlimited?
Okay, so that's a great question. It depends. Most of our ebooks in our library databases are unlimited user access. So an unlimited amount of people can be reading the same book at the same time. There are some where it says like there's like a 3 user limit or something like that. Those are rare, but they do exist, but most of them are unlimited.
So if it doesn't say anything like that, you're probably okay.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
most of them are.
Okay, thanks.
I would say it's very rare that we have like a 1 user or a 3 user. We try to avoid those licenses. Cynthia, do you still have your hand raised?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, I know we're over time. I haven't really gone through the chat. I hope we answered some of those questions. If I haven't, please, you can unmute and ask. I'll stick around for a little while. If Sam and Sally are okay to stay as well.
Linda, will this be available in the coming semesters, or is this a one-time thing? I'm just wondering if I can count on this every semester.
So our contract with BiblioU expires in the summer, and we need to go into discussions about whether we'll continue to subscribe.
Well, I think it's amazing. So do whatever you can.
Okay, thanks. Oh, I did see, yeah, if again, if the book that you're using is not in BiblioU, you can send me an email. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your flex day.
Thank you, everybody.